Top of the morning, Dan and Amy, and whether or not you believe Joe Biden's pronouncements and the middling rhetoric from his functionaries like DHS Secretary Mayorkas is the proximate cause of the surge at the border, the crisis now at the border. Has that been induced by Joe Biden, or is that just a right-wing talking point? I don't know. Why don't you talk to the people that are coming here? Martha Raddatz did. Is she part of the right-wing, fast right-wing conspiracy? I don't think so. Martha Raddatz, ABC News, she went on the border to talk to migrants trying to make their way into this country. Here's her conversation with one Brazilian gentleman.
Would you have tried to do this when Donald Trump was president?
Definitely not. Definitely. We had the chance, the same violence that is going on today was there last year. We used to watch the news, and I definitely won't do this.
So did you come here because Joe Biden was elected president?
Basically. The main thing was the violence in my country. And the second thing, I think, was Joe Biden. It's like lighting up my hope, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think we do. And I don't blame that gentleman for wanting to come to a place that's better for him or his family. It's never really about people who genuinely want to get into this country because either they're fleeing violence or they just want a better life. It doesn't mean that's, especially the latter, is a legitimate basis on which to gain entrance. And doing so illegally is not a legitimate basis by which to enter. But I understand the sentiment, and it's pretty straightforward. I don't think Martha Raddatz was trying to induce that statement.
No, it was true. And it's not only people from Brazil, but this woman with her 3 kids. As soon as he became president, they packed up and they started heading on their 20-plus day journey to the United States.
What do you think of President Biden? ¿Qué piensas del presidente Biden?
Eso espero que nos ayude.
This woman told us she hoped President Biden would help them.
So when she gets to the border, now they're not accepting families. She's like, whoa. They didn't know that was part of the plan. So now she's deciding whether or not to just drop off her kids and head back herself so that they can have a better life. And eventually they will reunite.
President Trump was on a podcast with Lisa Booth, Fox News. Not terribly interesting, actually. But he did offer a reminder of something he did with Northern Triangle countries in terms of stopping the flow of people fleeing places like Nicaragua, El Salvador, Honduras.
So one of the things I did was it was impossible to bring them back to Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, San Salvador. And you couldn't bring them back. You couldn't get them back no matter what. And what happened is I said, look, how much money do we pay? We paid those countries $500 million a year. I stopped payment, and all of a sudden they took them back. In other words, we'd capture MS-13. And if you take a look at El Salvador as an example, or any of them, and other countries too, they wouldn't take them back. So I stopped payment. As soon as I stopped payment, they gladly took them back. Nobody's ever done that before.
Mm-hmm. Incentives matter. And by the way, this is consistent with what we heard from the El Salvadoran president last week in his interview with Tucker Carlson, where he's like, those, the left is, he didn't say it this way, but it's essentially the takeaway. The left is always talking about, people hardworking, trying to come to America and make a better life. Right. Well, I want hardworking El Salvadorans to stay in El Salvador and make a better life for themselves and a better life in a better environment for El Salvador. That's my job. My job is to provide for El Salvadoran families. And so I don't want them to leave. I'm trying to, he didn't say this, but it's like, I'm trying to make El Salvador great again, and the United States won't let me. That's the posture of this administration, was a 180 from the previous. For more on this, let's speak to a official from the previous administration. He is Chad Wolf, former Acting Secretary at the Department of Homeland Security and a Heritage Foundation visiting fellow. Chad, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me.
So what about, the comments we're getting from those migrants making their way to the border? I'm here because Joe Biden and the Biden administration's policies and pronouncements have given me hope that I can get in.
Yeah, this really isn't all that difficult. I think if you just see the messaging, not only the messaging, but the actual policies taken since Inauguration Day, it's very clear why there's a crisis. It's very clear why thousands of individuals are coming to that border because they vote with their feet, and all they have to know and hear is that a friend, a relative, or someone else has gotten across into the country and is staying here. And if that's what they hear at the end of the day, they will continue to come. We will continue to have a surge and a crisis until you find a way to stop the illegal activity and hold people accountable. This will continue.
But what about, I mean, the mixed messaging, obviously, but you have moms now that are about to give up their kids so that their kids could become American citizens, get into this country, and then they'll go back.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the most dangerous things is the surge of unaccompanied alien children, UACs, at the moment. And what we know is a lot of them don't make this journey on, by themselves. The families sometimes make it with them, and then shortly before the border, they separate themselves, knowing that the child will get in, but perhaps the family member will not. So the policy that the Biden administration has taken, which is allowing all alien children to come in, regardless of whether they have asylum claims or not, is actually a very inhumane policy because it's providing hope and it's sending a signal it's okay to separate your children. We should be delivering the exact opposite message at the end of the day.
How did you respond to the pictures from border facilities that were leaked yesterday? The sort of pictures that the left had a core meltdown over a few years ago and now won't even address, pretend like they don't exist. And of course, DHS Secretary Mayorkas and Jen Psaki are doing their best to stave off the press from access.
Yeah. So my heart breaks for the CBP, the frontline officers on the ground along that southwest border. They're doing the very best that they can. Unfortunately, decisions are being made higher than them at the leadership level, both at the department and at the White House, that are putting CBP officers in untenable situations. They have very few resources to accommodate these folks, but are doing the best that they can. But you're exactly right. If this was 2019 and those pictures out, we had Democratic members of Congress camped out at Border Patrol stations along that southwest border. I think only one or two members of Congress have visited now. So the hypocrisy is very thick these days. The same things that they were outraged in 2009, they are very silent here in 2021. And we know why. It's politics, and it's unfortunate that we are playing politics, not only with border security, but at the end of the day, this is national security, because we know embedded in this flow of individuals, criminals, and sometimes known or suspected terrorists as well. So this is much more than just politics. This is about border security and national security.
Well, not to mention, as you well know, those who are infected with COVID who've been released, or those who are in situations like at those facilities where you could have some infected with not infected and spread the virus and so forth. And it just runs afoul. I mean, not that this is existential, but it just runs afoul of all of the moral indignation and the hand-wringing about COVID policy you get from this administration, what we see at the border.
Right. Well, that's exactly right. There's no consistent message coming from the administration, particularly on the COVID piece that you just mentioned, but also on the Title 42 piece, which is that public health order that they're turning around single adults. They're not turning around, or I should say they're only turning around about half of families, and then they're not turning around minors at all under that public health authority. So they're very inconsistent, while at the same time, if you're a Mexican minor, they're turning you around immediately. So there's a lot of holes in their approach to this border security crisis. And again, I don't see it getting better anytime soon.
And Chad, what about ICE getting this $86 million contract to secure hotel rooms for families? Has that ever happened before?
So in 2020, we utilized a small number of hotel rooms. We utilized them in a very different way. We were trying to stage individuals close to airports where we could remove them as we were removing them. So if we picked up an individual on a Monday, but we didn't have a flight going out till Wednesday, and we would house them in a hotel close to that airport so that we could get them aboard that flight and then send them back to their home country. The current administration is using those hotels very differently, as you know. They are putting them up in hotel rooms so that they can then release them into the interior of the country. These are two very different things. And I would say a lot of these facilities, whether it's hotels or even some of the self-sited facilities, don't have any national standards, are not regulated. So understanding that they need facilities, I would encourage the administration to look at already contracted facilities that have standards of care, that have medical services and other things, if you have to do that. I'm not saying that you need to, but if you need to do that, then you need to make sure that some of these facilities have some standards.
And it also seems to me that we need to be precise with our moral panicking in a way that the left is not. So we can suggest that Joe Biden is giving people false hope and he's endangering children and families who are turning their children over to drug cartels to traffic them into this country. It's concerning when the cartels refer to the president of the United States as the migrant president, as Obrador has suggested. But a lot of the personnel that do the day-to-day implementation of policy are the same personnel that were in the Trump administration. And the point here is to try to enlighten those living in darkness that people coming here by our frontline personnel were treated humanely during the Trump administration and are treated humanely in the Biden administration. The frontline personnel that are managing those facilities that are protecting the border, attempting to protect the border, they're not exploiting these people. They weren't exploiting these people then, and they're not exploiting these people now, even if the pictures are distressing. As with a good interplay with Psaki yesterday, they're getting treated better at those facilities than the National Guard did in D.C.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think the frontline officers know their job. They do their job well. In the case of Border Patrol, they simply don't have the facilities to house the over 5,000 minors that they have in custody. We got to remember that most of these minors, 75% of them are between the ages of 15 and 17. So these are not small children. These are young adults, and some of them can be very, very dangerous. But they're doing their very best. But what I will tell you is that there's a lot of concern inside Customs and Border Protection, and particularly the U.S. Border Patrol. They see their leadership go out on TV. They see their leadership say that the border is closed, that it's secure, when the exact opposite is occurring. So I do believe that you're having a confidence with the frontline workforce, with leadership, both at the department and the White House. Today, that's very dangerous, and that's something certainly to watch.
He is Chad Wolf, former Department of Homeland Security Acting Secretary and now Heritage Foundation Visiting Fellow. Chad, thanks so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
It's like a hot, steaming cup of information to start your day. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
The Lou Dobbs Financial Report is brought to you by Signature Bank, helping local businesses succeed. Visit signaturebank.bank for your commercial banking needs.
I'm Lou Dobbs. The Biden administration set to balloon spending by another $3 trillion. Back to work at Microsoft. Restaurant chain owner fondly remembered by his staff. Those stories next.
From executive producer and MyPillow founder Mike Lindell comes the